Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on our episode of Fruit Bearing Family. And this is actually episode 5. Today, for our Table Talk Tuesday, we have Rachel and Rebecca Murphy here with us. So welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
And you guys are in Florida.
Right.
Just because I don't know about other people, but I love to know where people are from. I don't know. Maybe it's like that adventure travel thing I have going on that I just love to know where people are from. So tell us a little bit about what you guys do, raising confident teens. So Rachel, just tell us a little bit about, I guess, where it came from and a little bit about your family, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, it came from, it's a long story, but this is the condensed version.
We love story time, so this is
about
good.
10 years ago. We decided, we got crazy wild hair and decided that we were going to build a log home for our family ourselves. And we had no construction experience. My husband and I went up to Washington State and we took a 2-day log home building class. And that was our...
And became an expert, right?
That was our experience. And then we came home and YouTubed everything, researched it online. You could build a house from YouTube if you didn't know that.
I did not, but now I'm so excited. My husband is going to be so sad you shared that information with me, because I'm like, guess what we could do?
Yeah, it was a lot of work. And so just through that whole process, our kids helped us. And we made them a part of it. Like Rebecca cooked a lot of meals for us. She was, how old were you? About 10 when we started.
8, I think.
8. Yeah, it was more than 10 years ago. So we just made them all a part. The 3 and 4-year-olds, they learned how to drive nails. They can hammer better than most adults.
Yeah.
And when we were doing all that, we felt like, oh, are we messing up our kids? Are we expecting too much out of them? Are we working them too hard? And we stressed out a lot about that. But we were kind of like in a predicament because like you got to get this done. Because nobody, you can't just quit halfway through.
Right. I mean, you need walls.
Right.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to buy a half-built house. Yeah. You can't just let it go. So you get yourself committed and you got to finish. So just through that process, our kids we noticed that they became more confident about being able to do things. Like, we'd say, can you go change out that doorknob? It's not working right. And, the 8-year-old would go over there with, with the screwdriver. And so just through that process, and then we became involved in foster family. We became a foster family and we became in helping foster families. And we just noticed that foster kids just didn't know how to do anything other than things they shouldn't know, like how to manipulate. And they didn't know any skills, anything that would help them in their life. And so that just planted a seed in my head. I'm like, we could teach them skills, let's figure out a way to just teach skills to young kids. And then I realized, just looking around, that it wasn't just the foster kids. Like a lot of kids today just don't know how to do things. They used to teach a lot of it in high school with shop and home ec, and they took all of that out because they wanted to get everybody college ready and push college. And we lost something along the way there. So we decided, well, let's just try to do that ourselves. Just start teaching kids and helping parents teach their kids how to learn life and leadership skills. So that became our goal, is to just empower parents to teach their kids themselves, or let us help them teach their kids life and leadership skills.
So how long ago did you guys launch your podcast?
How long ago did we launch our podcast? We are on our 30th, somewhere around 30 episodes. So it's been, sorry, I'm thinking 5 or 6 months.
I love it. And you were sharing before we went and hit the record button. I was asking some questions. And so your kids are all involved on the podcast as well. So tell us a little bit about just what some of the episodes look like, or some of the topics or their involvement.
Okay. Our 3 teens are involved. Our oldest is out of the house, and our youngest is 7, so he doesn't. He tries to come in here and get involved, but so we just get them on. They take turns co-hosting.
Okay.
We do we talk about money, and we had a whole month where we interviewed young entrepreneurs, people that had become millionaires as very young age. And so they would ask questions about how the person got started, and they'd interview them. When we first started our podcasts, we were all very rocky. Like, it was awkward. I don't want to listen to the first episodes again.
Right.
It was because this is not our skill set, but we just wanted to get the message out, so we just plowed through.
Well, and it's amazing what happens when you just see it as like knowing the person is on the other end that really does need what you're trying to offer them. And so when you're like, okay, let me get over myself, just won't listen to myself for a while, and just say, I'm here to serve that, even that one listener on the other end, makes it better. No, none of us like to hear our own voice, though. You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah. What are some of the other episodes we've done? We've done episodes on teaching about money. Our son, who just turned 13, did an episode on how to buy your first car. He has a small engine repair business.
Okay.
And he has helped us buy 2 or 3 cars in our family already.
Oh my goodness.
He finds them for us. He researches them. He tells us how much we should pay. He goes to look at them, and he points out all the things that need to be fixed and why they should charge us less money.
Yes. You know what I actually love about this is, I have a background in youth ministry, and I just love young people. But, that whole thing of parenting on purpose is that we are raising adults. Like, sometimes I think people just want to manage their kids instead of raising their kids to be adults.
Right.
And they sort of talk down to their kids without even realizing it, because that's just like the cultural norm, that you talk down to your kids, that they listen to you because you're the parent. But there's no instruction actually happening.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, there's no relationship. It is, I hate to say it's like a prison system, but it sort of is, with a family sticker stuck to it, I feel like sometimes. Do you know what I mean? That it's like, okay, you need to go to bed at this time, your door is being shut, and you're going to have meal times at this time, and you get no say-so, you get no involvement. And that is so not God's heart of how family is supposed to be, where really family is a representation of the church. And I've said this actually earlier today on a leadership recording we were doing, but family is the first church, what we consider church, where 2 or more are gathered, that our home really, parents are pastoring churches, whether they realize it or not, because they are raising up their family on what God's heart is really for family. So I love that you get your kids involved. I think that sometimes we have, just how in the Western church, speaking for Christians, that we try to outsource discipleship and the Great Commission, like, hey, we're just going to take everybody to church. We'll just invite them to church. Somebody else will tell them about Jesus. We don't actually have a conversation. I think we try to outsource parenting too. What do you think about that?
Yes. Yeah, we just segment them by their age. You go here for school. You go here for church. You have these kids. They're your responsibility. Don't be trying to shift it to somebody else.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is so true. We have made it to where, and not
we're awkward. We're not comfortable with our kids.
It is so true.
Right.
And this is, again, not being critical, but you really see this. It has highlighted the importance of family. And it really has given us a really clear line of how in trouble, and I'm talking about Christian families, right? Christian families are in discipling their kids in a healthy way, because we think of discipline as like negative consequences, like you're going to get in trouble. But discipline is core discipleship. Consequences can be good or bad. What choices did you make? You know, that you can have good consequences or bad consequences. But with the COVID thing, with, you know, parents not knowing what to do with their kids,
Right.
it really highlighted this level of panic that began to happen. Do you know what I mean? And
Right.
even for the parents that weren't trying to juggle, that they both worked out of the house, so it was a childcare issue, even if one stayed home, they really didn't, and they still don't know how to, like you said, it's awkward. They don't know how to just operate on relationship. And it's not being critical, it's that they don't even know how. And so they need people like what you are doing to come alongside of them and to mentor them, to say, hey, let's start some new habits. Let's see how we can get this thing turned around. So I'm hoping that that is the good thing that will come out of this, is that it's one of the things you shared before we went on is that you guys lived in a travel trailer for 4 years while you're building your log house, right?
Yeah, I don't recommend that. Yeah. Not if you want to stay married.
Right. You're like, this is not. And so the people that feel like, oh, now we're all stuck in a house together, you can say, well, you could be in a travel trailer, okay,
Right.
for all of that time.
It was very motivating to get the house done.
Yes, I'm sure it was. But I have heard families say that because they were on lockdown, you know, especially in the spring, that it was weird. They got on each other's nerves, but then they found it was actually really nice.
Yeah.
Because they had to learn to talk to each other and some things like that. So hopefully that will continue.
We're so busy.
Yeah.
Before COVID that we had no time to do anything but run all day long.
Yeah.
So now you're at home and you get to kind of just like breathe and just play games and do fun stuff, you know?
Yes. Only thing
you're
could
forced
be
to.
right. Yes, I agree. And I'm hoping that some of that stuff sort of sticks around. So
maybe that's why Jesus said we're supposed to take the Sabbath, because that is kind of what the Sabbath is like. You just take the day. And I mean, even I don't want this to sound wrong, but even as Christians, Sundays can be so busy. You know, you got church and you got figure out what you're going to eat, and you got some people have church again. You know, like it's not very restful.
It's not. I could not agree more. Yes, actually, that is also very true. Very, very true. And then if you do events, church events on Saturday, do you know what I mean? Where are you actually getting those moments to carve out that quiet family, and not even quiet, you know, go adventure. I feel like family should be an adventure, you know, it should not be boring. It's like organized chaos. It's beautiful. But I am hoping that people will sort of say, hey, we saw where we're lacking in how to connect with one another and what to do going forward. But here's what's beautiful. So you guys are going to be doing a challenge upcoming, and I'm sure you'll be repeating those challenges for listeners listening later. And a membership that's coming up is that getting to join some parenting memberships and family memberships really is one of those things that people can do to learn with other people in a no judgment zone, but to say, right, hey, how do we get through this together? So walk me through, if somebody goes to your website at raisingconfidentteens.com, what are they going to find there if they go there when they're listening?
Well, we have a blog there where we post different articles that we think people would be interested in. We have our podcast link there that shows all our podcast episodes. We have a link there where you can go to, and it leads you to our Facebook group, which is our free private group for parents. And kind of like along what you were saying earlier, I'm kind of a very workaholic kind of person. I tend to be very workaholic, and whenever I have to relax, I feel guilty. Like,
yeah.
High
all of
achiever.
us type A's. Yeah.
Yeah. High achiever. And so doing the Facebook group, I came to realize, you know, because I was like, okay, we're going to do this group and we're not going to waste people's time. We're only going to have good stuff on it. And then I came to realize whenever I would post stuff that seemed to me like kind of like, this is kind of like fluff, people needed it. Like they wanted to discuss, what's your favorite game to play with your kids, stuff like, because they want that connection.
You would consider light stuff that you're like, we're not even going deep into parenting and family, but they connected with that.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah, I love that game too. Or, like people just need connection, right? Especially right now.
I agree.
And I think that in general, I think even teens especially, they need connection. And I don't know that they're necessarily getting that on social media. They think they are.
Right.
But Rebecca says they're not.
They're not. Yes. Yeah, I feel like social media for adults, teens alike, it is, again, that love-hate relationship. It can be like the Facebook group to let these parents connect. It can be very helpful, but it also can, go the opposite way to where it is lonely in its own sense, or the comparison game.
Right.
Which also can be. Okay, so walk me through. We were talking beforehand about the challenge you guys have that is coming up here, and people can check that out in the notes if they're watching this in current time, or check back later if they're watching it later on. But it's a money challenge.
Right.
And so talk us through what that looks like. And Rebecca, we want you to share as well on how money's handled in your house. And so, Rachel, you can kind of share how you're raising your kids with money. And Rebecca, you can give us your viewpoint, because we always love to hear, those that are coming into adulthood fiercely, and to just see your viewpoints. So, Rachel, go ahead and tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Okay. So back when we started our lives, our married lives, one of us was pretty good at handling money, and one of us was not really good at handling money. And we shall not mention who was which, but we got into a huge amount of business debt. We actually started an internet service provider. We were like one of the first internet service providers in our area. And we weren't making enough money to survive. And so we were putting it on credit cards, which what a trap that could be.
Sure. Yeah.
And so we found ourselves $50,000 in debt, and we sold the business, but we didn't make enough to pay off all that debt. So then we were like making less than $30,000 a year with $50,000 in debt. And it took us years to dig out of that. We lived in a really, really bad neighborhood, and we drove like $1,500 cars, and we ate ramen noodles.
Right.
It was a great feeling to pay that off. But I was like, I don't want my kids to have to go through this. If I can teach my kids before they even get out on their own, because it seems like when we polled all our parents and we said, hey, what do you wish the most that you had been taught as a teen? It was how to handle money. And a lot of people said, I took classes on it, but it was all theory. And it
wasn't activating it. Yes.
Right. So like, yeah, sure, savings, investing, whatever, but it's not anything you're doing yourself. It's all in your head. It's kind of like parenting. Like before you're a parent, you think that you know all about parenting. You think your kids are never going to be like those brats in the store
That's right. And you can read up all the books and you're like, I'm so prepared. Yeah. And then life. Mm-hmm.
And then God will maybe give you one kid who's pretty good, and you think that you have it down and you could write a book yourself. And then he gives you more kids, and then you're like, maybe I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
Because I think God tricks
like God
you.
created them. Yeah, God created them with different personalities. I could only do one perfect. Okay.
Right. I think he tricks you by giving you one easy one, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
And I'm not saying you were bad, Rebecca. Rebecca's number 2. Rebecca was a little bit difficult as a baby. She cried all the time. Anyway, where was I going? So we decided that we wanted to teach our kids practically. And when they were little bitty, we did the giving, saving, and spend the rest,
Yeah.
And that was good. It's better than nothing, but it didn't go deep enough.
Right.
And so we decided we were going to design this program. I had read a book by Mary Hunt, called Debt Proof Kids. And she talks about it in theory, but she didn't really like break it down. So I'm like, we're going to break this down. We're going to write out instructions. We're going to make agreements and have rules and just like, step by step. If somebody didn't know how to do this, this is how to do it. So this is kind of what we've done with our kids. When they turn about 5th or 6th grade, we start handing over part of the budget to them. So everybody spends money on their kids, even if it's thrift store,
Absolutely.
everybody spends something. So we decided there's stuff we're going to spend on our kids, like church activities or school lunches, or they go to sports games and they need money to get in, or they want to buy food at the sports event, or clothes, or makeup, or gas for their car. We have a huge long list. So we decided when they're little, 5th, 6th grade, we start out with 1 or 2 categories. And then every year we add more categories. And then by the time they get to Rebecca's age, they have a whole long list of categories. And so every month they get money. At the first of the month, when they're little, we give it to them in cash. When they get older, it gets auto deposited into their savings and checking. And they have debit cards. So we just want them to learn all the lessons while they're younger and fail when the consequences are not so great.
Yeah. It's so let me ask you this too. So let's say, and Rachel, we're going to come to, or Rebecca, we're going to come to you here in just a moment, I have some questions for you, but, so in your household, let's say that, they get a certain budget and they have wheeled and dealed, they have shopped the deals. Do they get to keep the overage into their savings, right?
Yes. Do whatever they want with it. It doesn't have to go to savings.
Yeah. That was our son, by the way, who now owns 2 businesses at 24. But we're like, we gave you money. He's like, no, I just decided I didn't need those things. Like I made do, or I found something less, or for that same reason, because he was a saver.
And should be rewarded for that.
Yes. And
not like penalized.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So that was kind of our theory too. We would give him money and that he could budget that out as well.
Yeah, they decide how much to go in each category. We give them like, this is what we suggest you should put in each category, but you do with it what you want.
Yeah. So exactly. No, I mean, it's so good. And this is the thing too, is that it is raising up adults and not being the prison warden. Again, of like, hey, we're going to tell you like, this is all you get. But instead it's like, hey, there's freedom of choice here and consequences, be them good or be them bad in that safe environment. So I love that. So Rebecca, I'm sorry, go ahead, Rachel.
No, I don't know if this was you when you were a kid, but when I was a kid, I hated asking my parents for money. I felt like I would have to I'm like crawling in, can I have some money? Right?
Yeah.
So they don't have that issue.
Right. Yes. And it's great for the parents. Actually, this is such a good system because even for the parents, there's not like this guilt one way or the other. You know what I mean? That your kids are asking you for something and you've had like a stressful day and you're not fully listening and your kids are like, I'm going to manipulate this problem. Like this is when they say yes to things. You know what I mean? Because they're like, oh, they're distracted. Hey, can I? And you're like, okay, yeah, whatever. This really sets up clear communication and expectations, which is grown-up living. Right. It's how even in our marriages and things like we really should have clear communication. And I feel like that though, money is mentioned more in the Bible than people ever realize. And it's not that money is the root of evil. It's the love of money, of having it as an idol. So this helps with that. But I also love that the verse that says, live in peace with all men as much as it is with you. Doing what you're doing is actually having a peaceful, really living in peace when it comes to finances and budget and what your kids need. So Rebecca, talk us through some of the categories. And if you don't have to say them all, but just the ones that pop into your head, that at 17, your monthly stipend, we'll call it, whatever you want to call it, but your budget, what all does that cover?
So I get given money for food, like if I want to go out to eat with my friends, or like she said, if I want to get something to eat at a sports game at school. I get money for clothes, so if I need anything, I just use that for that. And then I also get like haircut money, school supplies money, and then like a little like my chore money is for like anything I might want to buy, like books or something, or say I want to get some new paints, something like that. And then also like homecoming dresses, I pay for those. And I think that's about it.
No, that's great. So from your perspective, why are you thankful for this system? And then I joked before we went live that also the parts that frustrate you, because even as adults, we get frustrated with our own budgets. Do you know what I mean? We're like, oh, this is really good. But there are moments that you're just like, ugh, if money really just grew on trees, life would be great. But just talk us through how it's helped you. And I mean, and just the advice that you would give to parents that are listening going, should I do this with my teens, or is there going to be like, a boycott in my house? Just so think of, you're not just talking to the teens right now, but to the parents, for them to be brave, to take this step, to walk in this, because it really is real discipleship. So just tell us your thoughts on that.
Well, I like the freedom it gives me because, like my mom said, I don't like asking her for money at all.
Yeah.
I do not like that at all. So I like the freedom I get from it. And then I like how much it has taught me to like budget my money and not spend it all, because sometimes I get caught up in that. Like if I'm out shopping with my friends, I see all the stuff and I'm like, oh my goodness, I want to buy it all. But then I'm like, I have to take a minute and realize like I can't buy it all. Money doesn't grow on trees. Cause like I love clothes and like that kind of stuff. And so like if I could, I'd probably spend all my money on clothes and shoes, but I have to realize that there are other things that I need to save my money for.
Like getting food when you're out with your friends, you're like, well, I can't eat my dress, so I'm not a goat. So this is not going to work out very well. And if you think about it, though you feel that way, all the adults that are listening or will be listening, they're all like, that's so true. They're the reason why there's those Amazon memes. Do you know what I mean? Because everybody's like deliver, and people just are Amazon crazy. So that's the adult problem. Everybody likes to do. So I feel like adults need to do what you guys are doing as well. So Rebecca, do you have friends that maybe their families don't do it that way? And like, what are their thoughts on how you guys are handling money? Are they envious or are they like, that's strange? What are their thoughts?
Well, most of my friends, they already have like jobs now. Like I have a job too. So
Yeah.
like they don't ask their parents for money anymore. So I don't really know how to answer that, because at like my age, everyone has a job.
Yes, that they're getting more influence over their own finances and what that looks like. So here's the question, Rebecca. When you are full into adulthood, you're married with children, right? Are you going to do the same thing with your kids?
Definitely.
Yeah. Yes, Mom's like, yes, we have not ruined you. This is really, this is the truth about parents. When our kids say, I'm going to do XYZ how you did because I appreciate it, we're like, we can breathe, because we don't know it's all done, how much we've done well and how much we've messed up our kids. It's only God's grace. So I absolutely love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Go ahead, Rachel.
Well, another thing that this teaches her is like, like as an adult, when you have your auto insurance come up and it's like, kabam, like,
yeah.
So like she's got a haircut line in her budget, but that doesn't happen every month. So she has to realize I cannot spend everything on that category because it's going to come up again. Not regularly, but it's going to come up. So
that is such a great point, Rachel, because even, married adults, the number of conversations that are like, oh, this bounced, this auto draft, because they think if it says you have, $200, you have $200. You don't have $200 because you have to keep it in there for those things that are going to come out on auto drafts. And so that is real life. So is that why that you guys have chosen to put their, monthly budget into, a checking and savings where they have like a debit card versus just the cash system?
Well, we did cash when they were little, just because
Sure.
kids don't have a concept of debit and
Right.
credit cards.
Yes.
But it
They're
got
like, oh, play money.
when they get lots of categories, it gets complicated moving money around. So if they can just pay it themselves when they're at the store or whatever, it makes it a lot easier. And then it automatically, have a web bill pay or whatever in our bank account, and it automatically does it. So I don't even have to do anything. It just automatically does it at the beginning of the month.
I love it. And about what age were your kids when you went to the, checking savings account system for them?
I can't remember.
Maybe when I was 16 or 15. But Jen and Hudson got theirs a lot sooner.
Yeah, because our bank didn't allow them to get it when they were younger, and our bank recently lowered the age.
Yes, our son too. We had to wait until I think he was 16. We tried because he had a job even before 16, but it was the same thing.
Right. Our bank now lowered it to 8.
Wow.
Yeah. So the 13 and 14-year-old have it, but they've been doing it for a while. So they both have businesses, so they know how to handle it.
No,
And
yeah.
they're not spendy.
Oh,
They are
no.
savers.
Are they boys?
One boy, one girl.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering. I'm like, is it a boy thing? Our son was a saver.
No.
He was a saver. I don't know that my idea, as a teenager was saving to spend it on something else. Do you know what I mean? Like I'll save
Right.
over here so I can go get, clothes or like whatever that happened to be.
Well, our 14-year-old girl, she's saving for a Jeep, and she's got a pretty big chunk of money.
She's got more for her car saved up than I do.
And we match. We don't give them a car. We match whatever they say.
Yes.
Up to 10,000. We can't go. You can't break mom and dad. Don't
Right.
don't save $20,000 and want me to come match it.
Yes. I absolutely love it. So, how often do you guys do your podcast?
When we first started out, it was every week, but it was we just couldn't handle it because we got teenagers and 5
And
kids. Life. So
Yes.
it's every other week now.
Okay, so every other week, and people can find all of that information on your website, right?
Right.
And I'm going to put up on the bottom of the screen. Tell us a little bit about this being able to download the free copy of the 25 skill building activities. So just tell us what that's about and where it came from.
Yeah. I just saw lots of people posting about how their kids were just sitting in their rooms playing on video games during COVID, and they couldn't get their kids out of their rooms. They couldn't get them off their phones. And so I came up with 25 ideas of things you could do with your teens to help them that would build skills. Like an example would be go on a road trip with your kid, have them plan the route, make them pump the gas, stuff like that.
Oh, that's so good. And that's like such practical stuff. And here's the really cool part. Young people like doing those things. They like to adventure. They actually like to use their brains. I feel like our society, again, with that like outsourcing parenting, that we treat them like they're not smart enough. I don't know how else to say that. That we really dumb down things for young people when we should not.
Yeah,
God created them with a brain. I mean, come on. If we tell our kids in church that the same spirit that raised Christ from the dead lives in you like it lives in me, but you know what? But you can't do X, Y, Z. You can't wash the dishes because you might break one. It really is actually kind of comical. I feel like somebody should do skit routines of how we talk out of both sides of our mouth in America with parenting.
I think if
what that looks like.
You wait until they're old enough that you think they should be doing it, then they're not going to be interested. You'll be past the point. If you get them when they're younger, they're more interested. They're more likely to form that work ethic that you think they need.
Well, and it becomes a habit that just gets in them, and it becomes a culture of normal for them to do those things versus trying to like do this huge shift. And those listening, if you have teenagers and you're like, well, I missed that boat, there really is God's grace to reroute.
Right.
So we're not telling you to throw the towel in. We're just saying that if you're listening and you have younger kids, it is so much easier to start with the right habits than correcting bad habits.
And I don't think any parent goes out there saying, I want to ruin my kids. Like you said, I think it's a cultural thing, and that we just did it because that's what everybody did.
Yes.
We all put our kids in school. We all, let them hang out with just their friends, and they've kind of lost the generational thing where they get wisdom from their older friends and family, and they just get all their information from kids their own age, which I don't have a problem with my kids having friends, but
Absolutely. But there
you don't need
really
to
is a
spend time with them.
biblical model. I mean, the Bible's really clear about older women instructing younger women and like this whole mantle of mentorship. And I feel like we have lost that, and you were speaking earlier about now in colleges or getting high schoolers rather ready for college, that they're like, oh, this is making life better for people. And it was with great intent. I firmly believe that people truly were hoping that young people didn't have to struggle the way that they struggled
Right.
with the same types of jobs or the same type of financial struggles. But in doing that, taking away some of the home ec in the shops and very practical things, and then parents not instructing them because maybe they didn't know how, or they just didn't
Right.
think it was important because we can YouTube how to build log cabins, for crying out loud. So, you know what I mean? So why do they need those things? But we do need those things.
Right.
And so now there is this gap. And so I'm really thankful that you guys are trying to fill that and to, because it's a voice that really does need to be heard, very, very much so.
Yeah, we don't want them to come back and live in our basement.
Right. Yes.
Like,
right.
you don't want to put them out there on their own and then they have to learn everything. I got to learn how to cook and how to clean and how to handle money and, get them as prepared as we can before they get out of your house. That
It
way
is
they won't come
absolutely
back.
true. My husband was raised by a single mom. His dad passed when he was 5, and he did not know how to do laundry when he went off to college. And he said, just like that whole thing, like it was so foreign because, they did it at home and it was just how they did things. And our son, yeah, he was young and it's not that we couldn't do his laundry. It was, hey, I want you to make sure that you know how to do those, things.
Yeah, you got to think long term raising kids. Think like, if I keep going the way I'm going now, what will this look like when they're adults? Like I always tell my kids, they got to keep their room clean because I say I want my future son and daughter-in-laws to love me.
Yes.
And if they have to pick up after you, they are not going to like me, and I want them to love me. So
that's right.
And
that is great advice. And I will just say that whole thing of that mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws don't get along, you're not going to love, that is so not even true. I have the most amazing daughter-in-law. And yes, and that's what I say. Like, and so when my son will do something, I'm like, you know what? I don't know what happened. He's an adult. He didn't do that at home. Oh, that's so funny because I'm like the neat freak. And she's like, so, and he's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't understand parents that go in and clean their kids' rooms. I'm like,
right.
Like, think about the future when they get married. Like I tell my kids, you can't date that guy because you've seen his room and you know what's going to happen if you marry him. That will be you cleaning that, and you'll get resentful and you'll be angry.
Look at all the garbage that he's got in his car. Okay, that's going to be your life.
And I know some kids grow up and they're not like that once they get out of the house, but that's just a joke at our house.
Yes, but that's just real life. Those are just real life behind the door conversations that are just fun. Okay, so what are some other things as we wind down that they can find on this 25 skills? So, the road trip thing, I loved. Give us another one that's on there.
Well, let's see. Find an old family recipe that you could cook together. Or
that's a great one.
If you want to go even deeper, you could make a family cookbook. Start a blog together. That's another one.
Yeah. This is a great list.
Yeah. You have to get the list if you want to see them.
I know. I'm totally going to, because I'm like, these are such great things. And I'm an empty nester now, but I'm like, these are just really great things. And not just COVID things. Like, these are just fun family things to be able to do together. Okay, so walk us through quickly about what your challenges that you guys will be doing on a consistent basis, I'm guessing from time to time. What a challenge is and how you're going to be using those.
Okay. Well, we're launching a challenge coming up here in October. This first challenge is the money challenge, and it's going to be teaching parents how to handle money, how to teach their kids to handle money the way we taught our kids. So we break it down to every day there's an assignment. It's not very time intense, probably 15 minutes or less. We're trying to keep it short. And we've done all the work that we had to figure out ourselves. And we just say, today, you just do this, write down categories. Yeah. So, and then we have like a sample budget. We have sample agreements, rules that you can think out that maybe you wouldn't have thought of, So each day we do a little bit. And then by the end, you have a plan for your family. We're going to do a question and answer session with our kids one day. Surprise. Let them ask. You can ask them any questions you want to ask them about how we do it and how they like it. So that's our first challenge. I'm not sure what we're going to do next after that one.
And how many days is that challenge that you guys are going to do? A 5-day challenge.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, folks, you need to not only just download the 25 skill building things, but also they can get on your email list from your website.
Right. Yes.
Okay, you've got to do the money challenge. I love that that's the first challenge you guys are doing because
it's the most important.
Yeah, it really, it's a huge thing to be able to get right now. Okay, so you can connect more with Rachel and Rebecca and the rest of their clan, of their family at raisingconfidentteens.com and stay connected with them. They're going to be doing some really cool things. So if you're like, I need people to walk out this raising teenage thing with us, these are your people. You have found your circle. You have found your table to pull up a chair to. So these are your people to be able to do that. And as always, we would love to connect with you as well, any way that we can. But we'll put up all of their info on my website as well, out on YouTube for those of you that will be watching there, and on our podcast show notes. And we'll have their social links in there too. So maybe you're like, yeah, I love websites, but I really just, I don't want to say stalk them on social media because that sounds so creepy, but you're like, you know what? I really want to know how they do real life. So we'll make sure that we get.
All of us moms know. We all know that we all stalk each other.
It's so true. So we're like, we're just going to put those links out there so you can just see, what real life is like. So it's so good. Rachel, Rebecca, thank you guys for being on today, and tell the rest of your family that's around your house somewhere, thank them for carving out the hour of not coming in and out. Cause that's a struggle this late at night.
Thank you so much for having
guys. Well, I so appreciate you guys are a joy. I really am going to go get your download and to get on your email list so I can be cheering you guys on. I absolutely love it. All right, friends, until next time, parent well and do it with purpose.